that are coming in the Q&A. So please keep those coming in the Q&A. I mean, maybe to start off, Organ Player actually first took the form of a theatrical production, and your work, though it certainly has engaged video and media in the past, is really foundationally performance and dance-based. This is kind of a two-parter. First of all, share what the impetus was to decide to make an autobiographical documentary, and then also what are some of the affordances and some of the challenges of working in video and documentary as opposed to live performance?
Sure. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining, first of all, and thank you for your questions. I'm excited to answer them. So so I was inspired to make a film because the death of my parents was really such a foundational moment for me in my life, as it is for most people. And as the film makes clear, I was exceptionally close with my mother. So losing her was really quite a thing for me to process. And whereas I had referenced her obliquely and my relationship with her obliquely through my work as Narcissister, I knew that I wanted to create something much more in depth. I knew that I needed a larger format, and I knew that the format of film would be the thing to contain all of the aspects of my family history and how I wanted to use my work as Narcissister to tell the story. I actually have been making videos of my performance work since the beginning of my project. I knew that I wanted my work to go farther out into the world than a live performance where a few people maybe in the audience could sort of absorb. And so I knew through video that my work could go on to many platforms in many different places in the world. And so the film, again, was really just an expanded platform where I could incorporate these Narcissister video works and this rich family history, and I could document, if only for myself, all of the stories that my parents had told me about their lives and about their families, and especially everything that my mother had told me and everything that I remembered about my parents, myself. So that's why I wanted to make a film. And remind me, what was the second part of your question?
I'm curious, they're obviously related mediums for you. You've been working in video and other forms of media, but I'm just curious about some of the affordances and also perhaps some of the challenges that translating live work into a video sort of brought up for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's really a gift to be able to capture. I mean, for me, to be able to capture a live performance in video, because the experience of a live performance is so ephemeral, and it's also there's so much that's hidden with the distance of the audience, with lighting, and making videos of my performance works is really an opportunity to capture the works at a much closer range. Which it is intense. I also find very radical and exciting. It's an opportunity to add additional content that's not possible during the live performance, to situate the live pieces in a setting beyond just the black box of a theater or the red curtain stage. So there's actually many benefits to making video works. I mean, I can edit, the works. With live performance, what's again exciting about live performance, but also challenging, is there's always the possibility for something to go wrong. And I'm very interested in my work being executed with a lot of grace and seeming ease. And so that's not always possible with live works. Things do go wrong. I'm not always totally in control with what happens in any given moment. So I mean, I appreciate both opportunities, and I think there's challenges and benefits to both live works and the making of video or film works.
Great. Well, I'm going to turn to some questions that are coming in the Q&A and the chat. Somebody in the Q&A was saying that your story is touching, and it's incredible how you've used your body and literally played organs to retell it. How has your art and expression, has it, and if so, how has your art and expression changed since your mother died, since your parents passed away?
Thank you for that question. Well, I think that, you know, the end of the film, when I'm in the water and Ava, the DP, sort of asks me off camera, you know, a question, and I say, you know, can we continue, essentially. I decided to keep that in, even though it sort of ruptures this very poetic, moving moment at the end of the film, because I wanted to signify to myself and to whoever sees this film that I am intending to continue, and I am aware that my life personally and artistically will continue, is continuing after the death of both of my parents. And I think, you know, the transition of my work started when my parents were already alive, which is that, you know, when I conceived of this Narcissister character, I knew that she could convey spectacle and humor and eroticism with so much ease. What I didn't know about her is that she could also convey poignancy, and that she could age as a character, and that she could even die. And when my parents started to get sick, I started to process some of what I was experiencing personally through the character. And so the works, several of the works that you see in the film, the life cycle piece, which is the birth to death piece, and then the piece that's excerpted also, that's shot on a beach, where I'm a grieving woman who becomes an older woman, who then becomes a pregnant woman, who becomes a man, a father holding a child. I mean, those are all works I made when my parents were alive, but had started to get sick. Well, the one on the beach I made actually when my mom, right after she died. So this process of making more poignant work, more sort of personal work, even though it was coded as Narcissister, started when they were alive, and then after their deaths, I've continued to make work. I made again that work, that performance work, Changes, that's on the beach, where I'm embodying 13 different characters within the course of 5 minutes, and then at the end of the piece, I move beyond the human form I become elemental. And I wanted to confirm for myself that people don't die, they just transition forms. And I'm continuing to make performance work that, I mean, not that it has to be so dark, but that has a more overt element of poignancy to it, and deals with death or the afterlife. So I think that's a way in which my work has changed since my parents have passed. Yeah.
We've got some other great questions in the chat. So one here says, we hold so much transgenerational trauma and history in our bodies. Do you feel this in the process of your work? Does the extreme physicality of your performance help you to release that trauma from your body? Does the public element of your practice increase this experience versus a personal, intimate catharsis?
Another wonderful question. Thank you. Yes, I feel that so much. And of course, my mother says it in the film, that we hold this ancestral information. I don't necessarily want to label it as baggage or trauma per se, but yes, we hold this in our body, and it's so essential for us to be aware that it's there. And I very much feel it. And yes, I mean, dance, first of all, dance. I mean, I was a professional dancer way before I started Narcissister, and I am a dedicated, devoted freestyle dancer, and I feel there's something about dance that's so healing in terms of like getting in our bodies and being aware of the ancestral energies and information. And I think that performing live is especially cathartic and healing. And I think dancing out with people as a group is especially cathartic and healing, because I think there's just something so ancient and foundational about moving our bodies to music, and doing that together as a ritual, whatever form the ritual takes. That's incredibly healing.
Well, that raises a question for me, just to sort of ask that importance of collective dance and movement. Obviously, in these times, we're isolated and we're engaging virtually, which on some levels are affording opportunities like this to happen. But I think we all know it's taking a psychic toll as well. I mean, how is your work progressing right now? Are you finding ways to perform and engage with that kind of energy that you're describing?
Well, I'm, being able to participate in this screening and do this Q&A is such a gift, because, unsurprisingly, there's been so little work for me right now. As a performer, I'm usually flying to different parts of the world to perform in festivals, to give artist talks. I'm grateful to have the opportunities that I do under normal circumstances, but now, there's so few opportunities to engage with people. There's no opportunities to perform. I'm not a social media type person, and also I stand firmly with the erotic content of my work, and I don't think it necessarily belongs freely floating around social media. So I'm not enjoying opportunities to perform, and I am taking this opportunity to make new work so that when the world reopens, I have new work to share with people and to contribute to the conversation.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm hope that that's soon, and I know we're all looking forward to that work.
Thank you. Nice.
Another question in the chat was talking about the aesthetic choices of your persona, the personal choice to use mannequin and masking. And yet this question writer said there are multiple instances in which there's a little bit of a slip in the covering of the faces and the photographs in the work. And they're wondering if that's an intentional choice, and whether or not the covering is more of a symbolic gesture than you actually wanting to hide yourself or your actual identity.
Well, before I created this Narcissister character, over 10 years ago, I was making work as myself and using my face in the imagery, and my body in the imagery. And I said this before, I found there was something just fundamentally narcissistic about that kind of work. And I found, that there have been other eras where using one face and one's body has felt incredibly essential and radical and strong and necessary. And I don't feel this is one of those times personally. And so I felt myself capable of doing something with my art that was so much stronger than what I was achieving when I was just using my own person. And that I found when I thought of this idea that I could wear a mask, and that ironically with the mask, I could say something so much broader and more impactful with my work than I could without it. And by changing my name, again, I could tap into a much broader, dare I say, universal message. Sort of everything changed. So many possibilities open up for me creatively and with my art. And and when I thought of making this film, as I said, I wanted to honor my parents and really to, first and foremost, make a tribute to them, to their experiences and their lives. I knew that I wanted to tell the story as Narcissister, and you know, I wanted the film to be as strong as I could, and I had an advisor, Louis Erskine, whose work I admire so much, and he said to me, you know, you're going to have to show your face in order for people to be really invested in the story. And I almost did, because I cared so much about, again, the film being powerful and feeling authentic, you know. But I thought, you know, to go back to the question I was asked before about how my work has changed since my parents' death, you know, I have invested so much in the creation of this Narcissister character, and I believe in this character so much, and I have committed to embody her until my biological death. And the film and my parents passing is only one moment in my experience, and you know, Goddess willing, I will have many more years to come. And for me to sort of abandon my vision for this masked, you know, anonymous character just for this film, for the telling of this one story, didn't feel right at all. So in partially covering my face in the film, it was really about sort of the intention of anonymity. I mean, I think true anonymity is impossible in the era that we're living in. I mean, with the click of a Google browser, you can find out what anyone looks like. And I know that to be true. And so for me, it's really this intention of self-determination and this intention of anonymity that I'm after. And that's what I was thinking about with the film when I found this happy medium of showing myself in a way, but also not fully showing myself by covering the pictures with my hands.
Yeah, I think you found a really wonderful balance, and there's a real power in the voice and also in accessing the kind of private sphere imagery. It feels very intimate.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, we're getting close to the end. I mean, there's so many other questions, but you know, in the beginning, when we introduced you, we mentioned that, you know, you're one of these 80 artists that's participating in Plain Sight. And so, as Paulina mentioned, that's a collective of 80 artists and activists. And back on July 4th, one of the kind of major interventions was for the organizers to charter a fleet of skywriting planes and transmit artists' messages in the sky over ICE detention centers and former government-run incarceration camps and border patrol stations and immigration courts across the US to call attention to these practices occurring both historically and, unfortunately, right now in plain sight, and to offer solidarity. You were one of those participants. Can you share what your skywriting site was and what your message was that was broadcast?
Yeah, my message was now or never, and it was intended to be in Elizabeth, New Jersey, although I don't think it actually flew that day. And I picked that message, now or never, because it actually comes from inspiration with my mother, who was a devotee of the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. And she taught me about his works very early on. And she had a poster on the wall of our house that I now have in my house that says, "The kingdom is now or never." And I believe that so much to be true, and I'm so inspired by his activism and also by his teachings of peace. And I just felt that taking a part of his refrain and also honoring my mother's own immigrant experience through the work of that person she so admired felt really right. So it's now or never, my message.
Those are resonant words right now, for sure.
They sure are.
Well,
do we do one more question?
Yeah. Final question. Let's see here. Oh, this is a tough one. But somebody in the chat asked any particular artists or films or theater and playwrights that either influence you or that you're particularly excited about now?
Yeah, well, I was so excited to hear today that Slave's play was nominated for Best Play in the Tony Awards, and I just think that that work is so deserving of that nomination. In the making of my film, I was really thinking about Agnes Varda's work. I love Mike Mills' film Beginners. I was thinking about Chantal Ackerman's work. I was thinking about Matthew Barney's work. There's just so many references, so many artists that in terms of my own personal artwork, I love and aspire to be as powerful an artist as Adrian Piper, William Pope L., Hannah Wilke, Yoko Ono. I love the Grace Jones collaboration with John Paul Goode. Let's see, Paul McCarthy. There's just so many artists that have inspired me in my work.
You're one of the first people I've had to ask that question, where people just don't just stammer and go, "Oh, I don't know." That was so specific, and there were so many. That's fabulous.
I could keep going, Louise Bourgeois, and there's just so many. Valley Export, Carolee Schneeman, Karen Finley. There's so much wonderful work out there to inspire us and to teach us.
Well, one quick plug before we say goodbye, which is this event has been part of the Oxy Arts and sponsored We Live Memories of Resistance series. I'm dropping a link into the chat. I want to highlight, the link takes you to the entire series and the upcoming events and dates. There's actually 2 really extraordinary events next week. So we're going to be screening and having a conversation with Alex Rivera and Cristina Ibarra about their really another really fascinating documentary that engages performative reenactment in that case, called The Infiltrators. There's a distinction on that event where we're actually going to provide the link to attendees in advance of the screening, and the actual event will be a Q&A. And then also on October 22nd, Thursday, there'll be an artist talk and discussion with Dred Scott. So please don't miss those. And I know I speak on behalf of everybody who is muted and unable to say it and not able to clap in a way that you can hear it, that we're just profoundly appreciative of you joining us. And it's an extraordinary film, and we look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you all for joining. Thank you for moderating and for your wonderful questions as well. This has been a gift for me. So thank you, everyone. Take care.
I don't know if your chat's open, but all the woot-woots and the loves and the thank yous are coming in there. So get a good dose of that.
I will read through them.
All right. Thanks again,
Thank you so
Narcissister.
much.